You are listening to I Survived the Wild Outdoors podcast, where real outdoors men and women share their heroic tales of survival. I'm your host, Brad Mathewson, and this is their story. Today's guest I have on the phone is Dave Moll from Kalamazoo, Michigan. He's a writer, a kayak tournament fisherman, and a co-host of Topwater Series Weekly Roundup podcast. So 11 years ago, on July 3rd, 2012, the day before we celebrate this country's independence, you were floating around on an oversized bobber after your boat quickly sank away. Kind of tell us what happened, Dave.
Well, we went salmon fishing out of South Haven, Michigan. There were four of us in an 18-foot boat. The boat owner was a big guy named Matt Serbinsky.
Okay.
His cousin, John Bruner, and his then 10-year-old son, Jack. And we went out before daylight, and it was, not really rough. It was kind of wavy, but not the kind of day that anybody who has any experience fishing Lake Michigan would say, oh, it's too rough to go fishing.
Yeah.
So we went out and had an okay boarding, caught 3 decent king salmon, and sometime around 10 o'clock, we were starting to talk about going in. And about that time, one of the planer boards acted like it had another fish on it with a, copper line.
Yep.
And it turned out, though, that it was just tangled in with another copper line. What happened when it got set, and it just looked like it had a fish on all of a sudden. So we reeled that in and ended up getting both of those lines tangled in a wire dipsy on the inside. And I hauled the stuff in and was trying to detangle it. And we got it a little too close to the motor. I did. And it got tangled in the motor with the copper line and the 7-strand wire. So we turned off the motor right away, and it's still, moderately choppy. I mean, it was choppy enough that John, the cousin from Evansville, Indiana, got a little seasick.
Okay.
But not bad. And, we're trying to detangle everything so we can get out of there. And Matt's saying, just pull it all in. We'll be fine. We'll untangle it at the shop. And I was like, no, I almost have it. I just have to do one more snip here and we'll have it all fixed. But at that point, it got into the motor.
Yep.
So we shut the motor off, and we'd been trolling with the waves. So that was our first mistake, as it turned out, was that we didn't have any kind of a sea anchor to deploy so that the bow could go into the wave.
Oh, no drift sock at all.
Right. So Matt and I are at the back of the boat trying to detangle everything. And we start taking a little bit of water over the back of the boat. This is a Lake of Salt boat, which I don't think is made anymore. And it doesn't have a splash well. So any water that pops over the transom ends up on the floor.
Yep.
And Matt's real intent on getting everything detangled from the motor. And I noticed that there's like water starting to stand in the floor of the boat, and so John is at the helm. I say, hey, John, turn on the bilge. And he does, and water starts spurting out. And we progressively get, another wave comes over, and, things are starting to like float around on the floor now.
Yep.
And then another one comes over, and we have a lot of water. And I'm like, I've already suggested John to move up to the front of the boat where Jack is. And I'm like, Matt, man, we're starting to have a problem here, And he turns around just in time to see, we have water almost up to the front deck level.
Wow.
And everything's floating. And at that point, it's like the boat just starts going over.
Yep.
And it turtled, it's the whole hull to the sky.
Yep.
And we were all going in. I grabbed my inflatable life jacket, which I wasn't wearing. We didn't have time to grab any other life jackets. Matt goes in the water, and I jump clear, and John has literally tossed Jack, the kid, to where he's clear of the boat capsizing.
Yeah.
And Jack was the only one wearing a life jacket. We don't have time to get the other life jackets out of wherever they're stowed.
Yep.
We are in the water, and John doesn't have a life jacket. Matt ends up with a seat cushion, PFD, and the boat. It's like, okay, we'll be okay. We'll just get on the hull and somebody will see us. It's 4th of July weekend.
Yep.
So there's going to be boats out there, even though it was a little bit rough, so there wasn't as much boat traffic as usual. So Jack and I both get on the hull, and we're about midway up, and suddenly, not suddenly, but we perceive that the transom of the boat is going down, with the outboard, and was slowly going vertical, instead of just floating as a turtle boat. And one of the things I remember feeling was the copper wire and wire kind of wrapped around one of my ankles.
Ooh,
as I'm hanging onto the bottom of the boat, and I'm able to shake it free, which thank God, because I would have gone down with the boat.
Yeah.
So the boat goes vertical, and there's like 4 feet of it sticking out of the water, just the nose. And John's in the water, and he notices that the cooler that we have, I don't know, 48 quart Coleman cooler, is kind of wedged between the water and the nose of the boat. And he thinks about not grabbing it because it seems to be the only thing that's keeping the boat out of the water.
Yep.
But he does grab it, which was a good thing, so it didn't go down with the boat, because that ended up being one of our personal flotation devices. So, all right, the boat, when he grabs the cooler, the boat just goes, and it's just gone.
Yep.
I mean, it is completely sunk. It doesn't have any kind of built-in flotation.
Wow.
Any foam or anything like that, and it's just gone. So we're all, kind of stunned. We're like,
yeah.
One second in the middle of Lake Michigan.
One second you're fishing, and next thing you're floating.
Yeah. And the next thing there's some planer boards floating around, and everything else is kind of gone. There's some other things that we had on board. And one of the things that I had brought was a yellow little, like a pelican case that I got as a freebie at an Evinrude event.
Okay.
For a writer's deal, which I had put. I had brought it because Matt's boat didn't have a marine radio in it.
Yep.
And I had that was kind of like my ditch kit.
Yep.
My ditch bag. That I had a radio in it, and I remembered I also had flares in it. But the radio had been sitting on the side of the boat on like the rod locker.
Yeah,
and
that's long gone.
I didn't remember if it floated or not, and it turned out it didn't. So it was gone. I have a completely soaked cell phone in my pocket, but I did remember that this case had flares in it, so I swam over to it and grabbed it. And I had grabbed my inflatable life jacket as the boat was going over. It was just sitting on the, on the rod locker.
Yep.
And so I've inflated that, and I have this case, and I'm fumbling around, and just about that time we see a boat go by, and it's not very far, but it can't see us. We're just 4 heads in the water, right?
Yep.
So we're screaming at it and stuff, and they're, it's close enough that I can see 2 guys at the transom. They're just talking to each other, but they can't hear us. It's just windy and wavy enough that they cannot hear us, and we don't have any kind of a noisemaker. None of us was wearing a whistle or had, a can horn,
Yeah.
and either one of those things I think would have been loud enough that we would have gotten their attention. So I'm trying to get a flare out, which I do. I have a little packet of 4 flares. I pull it out, and I realize I have no idea how to fire it off. I've never read the directions for it, right?
I think a lot of guys don't know how to do that. I don't
No,
personally. I have in my boat.
no.
I have no clue.
So, by the grace of God, when I jumped in the water and the boat capsized, I'm still wearing glasses, so I can read the directions. I see, okay, you pull this off and pull the chain, and it shoots off. So I do it, and it goes up like a bad bottle rocket. It is not a signal flare.
No.
I should add that I did also notice that it was 2 years expired. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but it had expired in 2010.
Okay.
So, so I reached for another one, and in the trying to set that one off, the first one off, I had dropped the other bag.
Oh,
the rest of the bag with the other 3 in it. I look in the water, and it's just below my feet. But I'm not willing to let go of this life jacket and dive down and get it.
No.
And by now the boat's kind of far away anyway, so it's probably not going to do any good. And then there was another boat that we saw. But I back it up a little bit. At about this time, Matt's like yelling at John to hang on to the cooler.
Okay.
And I look over and I see that he's having a hard time. He's like holding it so that it's kind of coming up over his face.
Yep.
And he's sputtering. And he's an experienced scuba diver, but he's on the verge of panic.
Yeah.
He's not been on Lake Michigan before. This is, his welcome to Lake Michigan trip.
Yep.
So I swim over, and it's like, and Matt's like yelling at me to, give him my life jacket and take the cooler, which I do, it's a good plan. So I hand him my life jacket, and he grabs the life jacket and my shirt.
Oh, boy.
And, I'm like, just the life jacket, Bubba, make it kind of a joke out of it. It's like, just let go of my shirt. We'll be fine. So he takes the life jacket, and I take the cooler, and I find out immediately that you have to hold a cooler with your hands splayed out. Otherwise, it does. If you try to hold it, with an overhand grip on the handles, it just comes right up to your face, and your body slips under it. It does not make a good PFD at all.
No.
So, I'm holding it upside down, and I can hear the drinks and ice still in it rattling around. And the water pressure is keeping the lid closed. And real soon after that, we're all separated. I'm holding on to this cooler, and after this other boat goes by, and I was yelling at it, screaming at it, and it doesn't hear us. Matt and Jack are together. Matt is with Jack, holding on to his seat cushion, PFD, and Jack has a full, body size, kid size life jacket on.
Yeah.
And John's holding on to the inflatable, but all of a sudden, like, I'm alone. I don't know where those guys went. It turned out that Jack and Matt had made, were the most hydrodynamic of the bunch, and they were able to start swimming towards shore.
Okay.
John kind of drifts off, holding the inflatable, and I'm holding on to the cooler. So for the next 3 hours, I end up just holding on to a cooler, and we're 5 miles from shore, can't really see anything on shore, other than shore. And as much as I kick towards shore, I just can't make any progress holding this cooler.
Yeah.
The wind was from the south and kind of pushing us northwards, or pushing me northward. I don't know what it's doing to the other guys. And I just I think eventually I'll get up to Grand Haven, which is like 30 miles away.
Oh my!
And maybe I can get to shore. But but it's weird the thoughts you have.
Yep.
It's like one of the reasons that we're alive today is that the water temperature was 70 degrees, which
Yeah.
is like the warmest ever for July
Yep.
on Lake Michigan. And had it been 10 degrees colder, I don't think we would have made it, which is more normal, like 60 degrees.
Yep.
Because, I looked at a hypothermia chart later, and it would have been about 4 hours before hypothermia started becoming an issue, even in 70-degree water.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that.
Right. I remember having all sorts of weird thoughts and mostly just feeling stupid, that I'm hanging on to a cooler. I don't have any way to contact anybody. I don't have a floating radio. I don't have any more signal flares. I don't have, anything other than this cooler.
Yeah.
And I can't go anywhere.
No.
It's like, I honestly didn't think I was going to die. It was like around 10:30, I think, when this happened.
Okay.
So it's early in the day, and it's the daylight's going to be really long.
Yeah, you figure you got plenty of time.
Yeah, I'm thinking somebody's eventually going to see this cooler and come over and check it out. And like 3 hours later, that's exactly what happened. We had caravanned over with Al Malsh, who is a business partner of Matt, and Al was still out trolling with his grandson, who was also, I think, 10 at the time, and another buddy, Travis. And they're still fishing because Al doesn't have his limit. And he's one of those guys that never gets off the water until he has his limit.
Yeah.
So he's, 3 hours later, I'm kind of looking over and looking around the cooler, and I see a boat. And it's like, hey, that looks like Al's boat. And it's pretty far away, but I think he's headed for us, And, sure enough, he's seen the cooler and he wants to check it out, see what it is.
Yep.
And then he notices that there's a body attached to it, and he doesn't know it's me yet, right?
Yep.
So he has Tyler, his grandson, get underneath the console because he doesn't want Tyler to see a dead body floating in Lake Michigan. And he gets up to it, and I was like, hey, Al. I was like, and Al's like, holy shit, it's Dave. And I tell him real quick what happened. And they haul me in their boat. And, I'm a little bit chilled, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
He gets a Coast Guard with a Mayday call on radio after he hears what happened, and explains what happened to the Coast Guard. And the Coast Guard says, well, just call us on the cell phone. Don't take up the emergency channel. So Al does.
Yep.
And soon thereafter, everything after that happened really fast. The rigid inflatable boat, the rib,
yep,
with a couple of Yamahas or whatever, comes flying out from the Coast Guard, and they set up a flash and buoy and start doing a grid search for other people in water. Right before they got there, we advised another boat that came by, be careful that there's more people in the water, and maybe look for them. And that boat was set up. I think these people were going perch fishing.
Okay.
It was a mid-sized sea ray, and they found John, who it turned out was like 50 yards away from me.
Oh, really?
The whole time. Yeah. So they found him and radioed the Coast Guard that he was found. And then as the rib does its search, the helicopter comes. And, man, once the helicopter was there, it immediately found Matt and Jack, who had made it pretty good headway. They were a couple miles closer to shore.
Oh, wow.
But they were hovering over it and got the other Coast Guard boat over, and they picked those guys up. So, we had kind of a tearful reunion. We went back up into South Haven, up the Black River there. And there was a medical tent or something, or medical trailer, I guess, that wanted to check us out. I'm like, I'm fine. You don't need to check me out. John had injured his ankle a little bit, but we were fine. We were okay. And so we see Matt and Jack at when we get back, and Matt was pretty sure we were dead. He was like, "Oh my gosh, those guys are alive!"
Yeah.
So we all were crying. It's like, thank God we're alive. But yeah, that's the story. I mean, we had some definite lessons that we learned. The first one being to have a sea anchor so you can turn your bow into the waves if you ever in that situation, so that you can ride over the waves better.
Yep.
Second was we should have been wearing some sort of noise making device, and for sure we should have been wearing some kind of PFD, or at least known where they were so we could grab them really quick and put them on, so we weren't holding on to coolers and stuff.
Yep.
Then either had a waterproof cell phone that we could have called. I mean, back then I had an iPhone. It wasn't waterproof like they are today.
No.
And it would have been helpful to have a floating radio, a handheld radio that we could have done a Mayday call with too. Because nobody knew we were out there.
No, and possibly some knowledge of how flares work.
Right. And I should have reviewed exactly how to fire off a flare. I could have gotten a couple of them off.
Yep.
And then, I didn't bring the flares along to use them. They just happened to be in this old ditch bag that I had.
Yep.
And even though they're expired, they sort of worked, So, and I don't know if another one would have worked better, but it would have been really helpful to have some sort of a smoke bomb flare so that people could have seen us better than, these tiny little flares that in the middle of the day, they just don't signal much, So
no, and
that's the story.
As cheap as they are, people should really take one out of their boat, go outside, read the directions, and fire it off.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, it's going to save your butt possibly in the future,
Right.
Especially when you're in a panic mode, when something happens this fast and you're not thinking correctly. If you've done it before, muscle memory is going to usually or hopefully kick in, and you'll be able to, kind of help save yourself.
Yeah. And make sure you have, better flares. But I think a smoke bomb flare would have been good, or having some sort of mirror to reflect in the sun and, flash it towards shore would have been helpful. I've got that stuff now. I've got a whistle and a mirror on a lanyard that anytime I go into Lake Michigan, I wear it. And sometimes I take a kayak fishing with me too, but not that often. Some much smaller lakes. And then, why not wear an inflatable PFD? They're so lightweight, they don't get in the way.
No, they've come a long way.
And I mean, if you go in the water, you got it ready. You don't have to worry about where the life jackets are, because from the time the first wave splashed over the back of the boat to the time we were all in the water was probably 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes. It just happened so fast, that boat went over and down. We didn't have time to think about, well, where's the life jacket, or anything.
Yeah. So, well, you answered that question, I guess. Everybody should wear those PFDs. I mean, I'm not a great swimmer. My wife bought me one. Oh man, probably 15 years ago when they first started coming out. And the only thing with those is they do have an expiration date on the CO2 cartridges.
Right.
So, you gotta
make sure those are good.
Sure those are good. But mine, and I think most of them, you can actually inflate. There's usually a tube on them, like an air tube, and you can actually blow it up manually also. So if you pull it and it doesn't happen, you can actually blow it up too. And they don't weigh nothing. I mean, it's like having a vest on.
Yeah. I mean, every time I've gone trolling since then, and to be honest, that experience kind of soured me to doing much of the big lake stuff. I just kind of lost interest in it. I mean, that's all I did for 13 years. I should back up and say that I was editor of Great Lakes Angler
Yep.
at the time.
Okay.
And I had been out so many times on Lake Michigan and Lake Superior and Lake Huron and Lake Ontario, Lake Erie,
Wow.
that, I just really didn't expect anything like that could ever happen to me. It's just like most people think of going on their local lake and then the little, 10 horsepower fishing boat
Yep.
and going out fishing. I mean, it was nothing to think about going out on Lake Michigan and going fishing, and that anything like that could ever happen. And, if it could happen to me, it could happen to anybody.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I take an inflatable when I have gone back out fishing the few times that I have on Lake Michigan or any of the Great Lakes. And, I put on an inflatable, and, sometimes the captain who might not know the story will say, what do you think? My boat might sink? And I was like, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel comfortable at least wearing an inflatable,
I remember reading something, and it said about boating accidents, and they said most people believe that boating accidents happen in bad weather, and actually, the stat that I read was 3/4 of the boating accidents occur in fair weather and in broad daylight with good visibility.
Well, that's when most boats are out.
Yeah, most boats are out, but I think people generally are thinking, Gilligan's Island, and the big waves come and the storm comes, and next thing you know, you're shipwrecked with Ginger and Marianne.
Yeah, you don't need a big storm to have a big problem on the Great Lakes.
No, and I think if people can take something from this story, it's always be prepared and always prepare for the worst. You only got one chance, one life, and just something so simple as just a life jacket, could save your life.
Yeah. Well, and I'm a big proponent of having a redundant radio. I mean, if you're on if you have a Great Lakes boat and it has a built-in radio, if your boat starts going down, you're not going to be able to use that radio.
No.
And it's nothing to have a waterproof handheld. I mean, it costs like $100,
Yep.
and just clip it onto your belt so that you have it, so you can hail other boats that are going by or the Coast Guard.
Yep. Well, thank you for sharing your story today, Dave. And I mean, it's prime boating and fishing season right now, so hopefully there's people out there can hear this story and get a couple of tips from the tragedy that happened to you guys. And I'm glad that everybody is okay. And I mean, it could have ended just horribly. It really could have.
Oh, yeah, it really could have. Yeah, it doesn't take that much to be prepared for that kind of stuff, just having a good ditch bag that has good flares and a handheld radio and a noisemaker and some sort of signaling device. Your odds of being found if your boat does go down, they go up immeasurably. Just to be able to show people your location in the water, because bobbing heads are hard to see.
Yeah. Oh yeah, especially in waves. You think about that. Every time a wave goes up and down, and then the boat that's out there, they're riding the waves at the same time, so they might be going up while you're going down, and just never see you. Plus dangerous.
Yep.
If there's a boat, it might be on top of you too.
Exactly.
Think about that.
Yeah, well, I'm always happy to share the story. I mean, the details are getting fuzzy after 11 years. There was a lot more drama. I mean, you can read the post that I wrote, the blog post I wrote. It's still on the Midwest Outdoors website. I can find the URL here. If you go to MidwestOutdoors.com and do a search for stupid, adrift, and thanking God for a Coleman cooler, you can find the story. It's a kind of a lengthy blog post I have there that has a lot more details. And, I have a quick boat review of the Lake of Salt boat, which, it was a nice boat, but I certainly would never buy one because they tend to sink. But,
did they end up recovering the boat, or?
No. As far as I know, that boat's still down there with it. I think it had a 90 horsepower Honda outboard on it.
Wow. See, the DNR in Wisconsin, if you put a boat, a four-wheeler, a fish shack, anything in, you're responsible, a vehicle, you're responsible for getting it out. And you have, I believe it's 30 days. I know you can get extensions, but I believe it's like 30 days you have to get it out. And there's actually a company in Wisconsin that specializes in that, and it's very expensive. But yeah, you put it in, you got to get it out. So
yeah, well, it makes sense to do that.
But nice fish habitat down there, nice little fish crib.
I guess. I don't know. If it was neutrally buoyant at all. It might be. Who knows where it is?
Yeah, might wash up on shore one day.
Maybe.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, Dave.
Yeah, and, my pleasure, Brad.
Yeah, I'm glad we finally could get hooked up here and got this in tonight. So thanks for everybody listening, and enjoy all that Mother Nature has to offer. If you like what you heard today, click the subscribe button to hear more upcoming stories. If you or someone you know have a survival story you'd like to share, contact me at isurvivethewild@gmail.com.